Mills Entertainment presents Theresa Caputo Live, The Experience. For more than a decade, Theresa Caputo, known worldwide as the Long Island medium and star of the new Lifetime series Raising Spirit, has touched the lives of millions of fans, comforting supporters when they need it most. Through personal life stories, candid humor, and intimate details about her gift to communicate with those who have passed on, the beloved television personality and best-selling author delivers healing messages to her audience, reassuring them with the revelation that their deceased loved ones are still with them, just in a different way. Recognized as one of the most renowned mediums for over 20 years, Theresa Caputo Live, The Experience is the awe-inspiring event you won't want to miss. However, it was a quiet Thursday afternoon in Long Island, and the sun filtered gently through the gauzy curtains of the small reading room where Theresa Caputo was preparing for her next session. She sat with her notebook, sipping iced coffee when the doorbell chimed. A woman in her late 50s stepped inside, her eyes weary yet hopeful. Her name was Eleanor. Theresa greeted her warmly and offered her a seat. She could already sense a strong presence in the room, someone eager to speak. So Theresa began. "Before you say anything, I just want to let you know that your husband is already here." Eleanor's hands trembled. "My husband passed away last winter. He had cancer. We were married for 32 years. Theresa nodded slowly, her eyes fluttering shut for a moment as she listened to something, or someone, only she could hear. "He says you still keep his coffee mug on the kitchen counter, just like he used to leave it. He's smiling about it." Eleanor gasped softly. I couldn't bring myself to put it away." Theresa continued, her voice gentler now. "He's telling me about a song, something you danced to in your living room. He says you used to sway together while cooking dinner." Eleanor's eyes filled with tears. "It was our song, Unchained Melody. He played it every Sunday. He says that every time it comes on the radio, that's him. He's letting you know he's with you." Suddenly, Theresa's expression changed. She became solemn, almost reverent. "He wants me to tell you. He never left you, not really. He watched you sleep every night in the hospital chair next to him. He heard you whisper that you didn't know how to go on without him. And he wants you to know, he never felt more loved than in those final moments." Eleanor broke down, her shoulders shaking, but through the sobs, there was release. Theresa leaned forward. "He's also saying something strange. Did he plant daisies in the backyard?" Eleanor looked up, startled. "Yes, every spring. He says, 'Look for the daisies this year. I'll be in every bloom.'" Eleanor managed a smile through her tears. "I always look for them." Theresa nodded. "He's showing me a vision of you sitting out there in the morning, reading a book with your coffee. He says that's his favorite part of the day, watching you find your peace." As the session came to an end, the air in the room felt lighter. Eleanor stood up, her heart still heavy with grief, but also uplifted with a sense of something sacred, that love, true love, never really dies. It lingers in the memories, the small habits, the blooming flowers, and the songs that unexpectedly play on quiet afternoons. Theresa smiled as Eleanor walked out. "He loves you, he always did, and now you know, he still does." Outside, the wind rustled through the trees, and Eleanor felt something she hadn't felt in months, a warmth, an invisible embrace. Somewhere, somehow, he was still with her. However, the room pulsed with anticipation. Soft lights bathed the newly designed studio in a warm glow, while cameras rolled silently like watchful eyes. Tonight wasn't just any premiere, it was the most anticipated return of Long Island medium. And Theresa Caputo was back, bolder than ever. Theresa walked slowly into the center of the room, her signature blonde hair perfectly styled, her aura electric. She closed her eyes. The room fell silent. Suddenly, she lifted her hand. "There's a man here. He passed suddenly. Heart attack. He's showing me a watch, silver, maybe engraved." Gasps rose from the audience. "That's my father's," cried a woman in the third row, tears welling in her eyes. He gave me his watch the day before he died." Theresa smiled softly. "He's saying he didn't suffer. He says he's proud of you for taking care of your brother." The woman wept. The camera zoomed in. A collective shiver ran through the audience. But tonight's premiere wasn't just emotional, it was mysterious. Midway through the show, Theresa paused. "This is strange," she murmured, turning to the crew. "There's someone not connected to any of the guests." The lights flickered. A chill swept through the room. "He's wearing a soldier's uniform, World War II, and he's been trying to come through for over 70 years. A stunned silence followed. From the back of the studio, an elderly man stood up. His hands trembled. That's my brother. He never came home." Theresa's eyes shimmered with tears. "He says he never got to say goodbye, but he watched over your family every day." The man fell to his knees, sobbing. The entire audience stood, applauding in reverence. Even the most skeptical critics in the press section had tears in their eyes. As the show ended, Theresa turned to the camera. "Spirits never forget. They're always with us, even when we're not looking." And with that, the premiere faded to black, leaving millions of viewers speechless and forever changed. However, it was a crisp autumn afternoon on Long Island when Theresa Caputo received an unexpected call from her producer. "Theresa, you're not going to believe this," he said, excitement bubbling in his voice. "We've been contacted by Carson Kressley. He wants you to connect with his horse." Theresa blinked. "His horse?" "Yes, and get this. The horse passed away 10 years ago. But Carson swears he's been feeling its presence lately. He thinks it's trying to tell him something." Never one to shy away from an unusual reading, Theresa agreed instantly. 2 days later, Carson arrived at Theresa's home in Hicksville, carrying a framed photograph of a striking chestnut horse with a flowing white mane. "This is Starlight," he said, placing the photo gently on Theresa's table. "He was more than a pet. He was family. A champion. My confidant. But lately, I keep dreaming about him. He's trying to say something." Theresa closed her eyes and placed her hand on the photo. Her fingers twitched slightly, her breath caught, and the room grew quiet. Then she whispered, "Oh my God, this horse is talkative." Carson chuckled nervously. Theresa continued, her voice suddenly stronger. "He says he remembers running in open fields, but it's not New York. It's somewhere older, warmer. He keeps showing me a red barn and a small girl with long curls, and a locket." Carson frowned. "That's odd. I don't know any girl like that. Maybe a previous owner?" Theresa's eyes flew open. "No, Carson, this girl, she's connected to you. He says her name was Lily, and she used to ride him before he came to you. But there's more. I see an old journal, and a buried box." Chills ran down Carson's spine. "Wait, my grandmother's name was Lillian. She used to talk about a horse she loved as a child, but no one ever knew what happened to it." The air shifted. Theresa clutched the table. "Carson, Starlight is telling me. He was your grandmother's horse. Somehow, he ended up with you generations later. He found you again." Carson sat in stunned silence, his hand over his mouth. "There's more," Theresa said softly. "He's showing me a hill behind a farmhouse. Says there's something buried there. Something your grandmother left behind for him, and for you, a memory box." The next week, Carson flew with Theresa to his family's old farm in Pennsylvania. Guided by the vision, they climbed the gentle slope behind the barn, and there, under an old oak tree, the ground gave way. Inside the rusted tin box, wrapped in oilcloth, they found a child's drawing of a horse labeled Starlight, a faded photograph of young Lillian, holding the horse's reins, and a silver locket with the initials LK. Carson held the locket to his heart. She must have somehow known, and he came back to me. Tears welled in Theresa's eyes. He was never just a horse. He was a soul companion, connected to your family over lifetimes. The story made headlines. Long Island medium unites Carson Kressley with grandmother's spirit horse. But for Carson and Theresa, it was more than a media moment. It was a profound affirmation of the mysterious, unbreakable threads that tie lives and souls together. As they stood under the golden leaves of autumn, Theresa smiled. You know, Carson, sometimes the heart knows before the mind ever catches up, and Starlight, he always knew where home was. However, it was a chilly October evening in Pacho, Long Island. The smell of burnt leaves lingered in the air, and the orange haze of the sunset seemed to warn of something approaching. Theresa Caputo had just returned home after a long day of readings. She was exhausted but couldn't shake the strange heaviness that clung to her all afternoon, a pressure in her chest, a whisper in her ear, a voice that kept repeating the same name, Danny. That night, she sat on her couch, flipping through the channels with her ever-present beehive hair slightly deflated from the day. Suddenly, she gasped. The whisper came again, clearer this time. He's not gone. Not yet. Theresa clutched her chest and closed her eyes. A vision filled her mind. A fire, a trapped firefighter, smoke billowing, and a child crying out. She didn't know how or why, but she knew someone needed her, and fast. At Station 12, fireman Danny Russo, a 34-year-old third-generation firefighter, kissed his daughter's picture before pulling on his gear. The sirens blared. A 3-alarm fire had broken out at an apartment complex in Brentwood. As Danny and his crew arrived, chaos unfolded. Flames licked the sides of the building, and a terrified woman screamed that her son was still inside. Without hesitation, Danny rushed in. The smoke was blinding. Visibility was nearly zero. The heat was unbearable. But he followed the faint sound of crying. Room by room, he searched. Finally, in a corner of the kitchen, curled beneath a cabinet, he found a boy no older than 6. Danny scooped him up, wrapping his own coat around the boy. But as he turned to escape, boom! Part of the ceiling collapsed. Trapped. Theresa sprang up from her couch. She didn't know where she was going, but something was guiding her. She drove blindly, the spirit world pulling her toward Brentwood. Arriving at the scene, she approached the nearest firefighter. Someone is still in there, she said. Danny, he's alive, but he's trapped on the 3rd floor. The firefighter eyed her warily. Ma'am, we've done a sweep. Theresa's voice rose with urgency. You have to trust me. I see things. I hear him. He's calling for help. Please, he saved a little boy. Now he needs someone to save him. Her desperation was palpable. The fire chief, overhearing the commotion, recognized her. Wait, you're the Long Island medium, right? She nodded. The chief hesitated only a moment before calling over his radio. Crew Delta, check the northeast quadrant of the 3rd floor. Possible survivor. The rescue team heard tapping beneath debris. They found Danny, alive but unconscious, shielding the little boy. Both were rushed out, cheered on by the crowd. Theresa stood silently, tears in her eyes. The spirit voice had gone silent, its mission complete. Danny woke up in the hospital to the sound of his daughter laughing. The boy he'd saved had come to visit with his family, calling him a hero. But there was one visitor Danny didn't recognize, Theresa Caputo. She entered the room with a smile. Hey there, hero. Danny blinked. Do I know you? No, she said, placing a gentle hand on his shoulder. But someone made sure I found you. Danny frowned. Someone? Theresa smiled. Let's just say, your grandfather's a loud spirit. He wasn't letting his grandson go down like that. Danny, stunned, whispered, You saw him? She nodded. He said to tell you, the legacy of bravery runs strong in you. And he's proud. Tears welled up in Danny's eyes. The story of Danny's miraculous rescue spread across the island. Many credited the fire department, the brave firefighters, and modern equipment. But some whispered about the woman with the big hair and bigger heart, who listened to whispers no one else could hear, and saved a life because of it. And Theresa? She went back to her readings, her TV show, her family dinners. But sometimes, when the air grew heavy and a whisper stirred in the quiet, she knew someone, somewhere, still needed her. Because the line between this world and the next was thin, and Theresa Caputo walked it every day. However, it was a warm spring afternoon in Nashville, Tennessee. The sun hung lazily over Broadway as country music drifted from the neon-lit honky-tonks. Tourists snapped photos, locals sipped sweet tea, and somewhere amid the chaos walked a woman with big blonde hair, manicured nails, and a spiritual gift that made even the most skeptical pause in wonder. Theresa Caputo was in town for a quiet weekend. No cameras, no book shows. Just her, a pair of comfortable boots, and her ever-present connection to the spirit world. She told herself it was a break, a time to recharge, but as always, spirit had other plans. Walking past a small coffee shop on 12th Avenue South, she felt it. That familiar pressure on her chest, the flutter in her stomach, the sense that someone, no, several someones, were trying to speak. She paused, hand over her heart. "Not now," she whispered. "I'm not working." But spirit doesn't follow schedules. Inside the shop, a young woman sat alone, clutching a paper cup. Her eyes were red, her makeup slightly smudged. Theresa didn't know her, but spirit did. Okay, Theresa muttered, pushing the door open. The bell chimed overhead. The woman looked up as Theresa approached. "Hi," Theresa said gently. "I don't want to startle you, but I'm a medium, and someone's coming through very strong for you right now." The girl blinked. Are you Theresa Caputo?" Theresa smiled softly. "Yes, sweetie. And I think your brother's here." The woman gasped, a hand flying to her mouth. "My brother passed in a car accident 3 months ago." Theresa nodded. "He's showing me a guitar." "Did he play?" "Yes, he was amazing. He wanted to be a musician." "He's telling me he didn't feel any pain," Theresa said. "He says you were the last person he called. You didn't answer because you were asleep, and you've been feeling guilty ever since." The woman burst into tears. "He doesn't blame you. He says he heard your voicemail, and it made him smile. He says he was never scared, and he wants you to keep going. To play his songs, to live." The girl sobbed and laughed all at once. "I just came here to feel close to him. This was our favorite coffee shop." "Well," Theresa said, touching her hand gently, "he knew you'd be here." By now, other people had gathered, drawn by the energy in the room, by the unmistakable sense that something extraordinary was happening. Theresa's readings flowed like rivers. An older man who lost his wife, a teenager grieving her grandmother, a tourist from Ohio who'd just buried her father. For over an hour, the coffee shop transformed. Tears fell, laughter bubbled up, hugs were exchanged. Strangers became friends. The dead whispered messages of love, healing, and forgiveness through Theresa's gift. Finally, as the crowd thinned and the sun began to set, Theresa sat down with a sigh. A barista placed a cup of chamomile tea in front of her. "On the house," he said with a grin. "That was the most beautiful thing I've ever seen." Theresa smiled, stirred her tea, and looked out the window at the glowing Nashville skyline. "I came here for a break," she said, almost to herself. "But sometimes spirit's plans are better than mine." And somewhere, in the warm southern wind, laughter echoed. The laughter of those who'd crossed over, still loving, still watching, still speaking. Hello lovely viewers, welcome to my channel. I am Mina. Hope your day is so well. If you like the video, don't forget to subscribe the channel.